This is the new 2-in-1 device from Onexplayer called the G1. So this little device is pretty cool. At first glance, you might think it's just a tiny laptop, but it actually has a little secret. So underneath the keypad, if you just lift up the keyboard, which removes here, you have a full set of controllers, a giant touchpad, and a touch keyboard. It may not be the only clamshell device on the market, but it's probably the most unique that I've seen. So the device is unique, but is it any good? We're going to take a closer look with some tests. I'm going to try out the ergonomics and the controls on this, and we're also going to test out how it works as a mini laptop. All right, so let's dive into it. So the G1 is claimed to be a gaming device as well as a workstation. We're first going to take a look at the gaming side, and then we're going to take a look at the mini laptop. So the device is equipped with an HX370 on board. You have options for 32 or 64 gigs of RAM, so it's definitely got enough power. I've shown the HX370 on the channel with the Onexplayer F1 Pro as well as the Aokizoe A1X. So I would say it's currently the strongest APU in the handheld PC market. Some would say that the MSI Claw 8 has caught up, but either way you're getting either the strongest or the second strongest. Definitely no concerns with game performance here. So I'm not too worried about game performance, but what is in question is the ergonomics and the controls. So this device, as you can see, has a bit of a gap here because there needs to be a space for the keyboard to sit in. And that's what a lot of people were wondering, like, is this device going to be uncomfortable because of that? And I'm happy to report that it doesn't really seem to make an impact. Like, I can still reach the joysticks totally fine, the face buttons, D-pad. I don't really have any concerns with it being recessed. The face buttons are fairly good, like they're nice and clicky. They're a little bit soft, but not really any complaints with them. The joysticks are the smaller size, like these are the Switch size joysticks, but overall, I do find that they're still fairly usable. I haven't really had any issues while playing games with it. And then there's the D-pad. So this one, it works perfectly fine. Like I haven't had any kind of like false inputs with it. But what I will say is that it's not the most comfortable. Like it's very tight, a little bit shallow. Now I'm guessing that's because the device is fairly thin and they can't really do anything about that. But it is worth noting that that's really my only complaint with the controllers. The triggers are perfectly fine. Like they're not a massive movement, but enough for, let's say, a racing game. I wouldn't have any concerns with that. And the bumpers feel really good to press as well. So only concern I have is really this D-pad. The last thing that I'll kind of note here for the handheld mode, I'll call it, is actually this giant trackpad. So I actually really like it. So being able to just move around and navigate windows, it makes it so much easier. And if you press a button, then your trackpad actually turns into a touch keyboard. The G1 is a little bit heavy. It's not so bad in handheld mode. I believe in handheld mode, it's about 870 grams. Let's give it a quick test here. And it's coming at 869, so very close. It does get a bit heavier when you actually put the keyboard in. So if I put the keyboard, just lay it across here right now, you can see that it's just about 1 kilogram at 999 grams. So if you're playing in handheld mode, it's not bad. You know, with 870 grams, it's a little bit heavier than some others, but definitely still in the playable territory. The other thing that I'll note is that, you know, while it is fairly comfortable for what it is still square shaped. It's not, you know, as comfortable as, let's say, like the F1 Pro or an Ally X. But for what it is, honestly, it's not bad. I don't really have any complaints, and I could easily use this as my main handheld without really having too much complaints. So the second advertised use for the G1 is actually as a mini laptop, and this is where I have some mixed feelings about it. The one thing with the keyboard is it is a little bit cramped. Like it's still, you can still type, but it's a little bit more tight than I would like. Like obviously they can't really do much with how small the device is and how they have to make it fit. So if you're, you know, using it for Discord chat or, you know, searching the web, just some basic use, it's going to work perfectly fine for you. But I wouldn't use this keyboard particularly to like write a paper or something. One nice thing about the keyboard is when you remove it, you can actually use it as a Bluetooth keyboard and you can pair up to 3 devices. So overall, kind of neat with the functions, just a little difficult with the size. The screen is nice though. It's sporting the same display as the Legion Go, and if you've ever used that, you'd know that it's a very vibrant display. It's not OLED and it doesn't have VRR, but it's 1600p, it's IPS, and you do get a 144 Hz refresh rate. So the screen is great at 8.8 for using it while you're playing handheld. It's nice and large, but when you're using it as a mini PC, it's a little bit small. The other thing that I like about the device is the I/O, so it's pretty nice. You have two USB 4 ports here that are USB Type-C, one USB-A port, you have Oculink and a headphone jack, and then on the side you have a micro SD slot. So very capable. If you're using it as a little mini laptop, it's nice to have those extra options here. So the laptop on the go is not perfect, but it does the job. My main use case though is actually connecting to my desk with my monitor there. So this is my gaming setup. I have the G1 as my main device right now that I currently use. This works well with connecting, a single USB-C cord to my monitor, and I'm good to go. I also pair up a mouse and keyboard and usually a gamepad if I'm playing docked. The monitor that I have here is actually one of the main components of my setup that I really like. It's a monitor that I've been testing for a couple of months now, and it's been great for handhelds just because of that single wire solution. I'll be reviewing this monitor pretty soon in its own video, but while I'm here, I figured I would just show you what it looks like and give you a quick preview. So it's a 4K 144Hz LCD monitor, and it comes from a company called Doe. This is one that I'm probably going to keep in my permanent setup because it's really handy for handheld PCs. So I connect my handheld with one USB-C cord and pretty much I'm good to go. I connect anything that's connected to the monitor will now show up on the handheld. So I usually have my gaming SSD plugged in as well as my controller. So once I plug it in, they automatically pair. And the nice thing is that it actually provides 100 watts of power delivery, which makes it so I don't have to have a charger plugged in. I could just go straight off of the monitor cord here. And because of that, it makes it easy to use your handheld as a controller if you want to. I typically will prefer to just use a controller attached so I can kind of sit back and not have any cords attached. But anyway, I'm going to go more into that into the actual review, but I just wanted to show you guys because I thought it was pretty cool and I was using it while I was filming for the G1. So stay tuned for that one. Links in the description if you're curious beforehand. If I'm planning to do some heavier gaming, I usually connect to an eGPU and I'll connect it to this monitor or possibly my TV if I'm playing with my wife. This is where the Oculink on the G1 comes in handy. If you have ever used Oculink, it's a nice bump in performance when you're connecting to an eGPU. So I did do some testing. I paired it up with my Onexplayer GPU, which I'm going to show in a little bit. Before I show any eGPU performance, I wanted to actually show what the device can do itself. So I had mentioned that it has an HX370 and how it's the strongest APU you can get right now. So let's actually take a look at what it looks like here. So with Cyberpunk running at 30 watts 1080p at high settings, I have FSR set to quality and frame gen turned on. The game runs mostly in the 60s. It looks pretty good. One thing that I did notice is most of the games seem to run better with CPU turbo boost off, so I've turned that off for all the games that I'm going to be running today. But yeah, Cyberpunk seems to run pretty well. Running at high settings is definitely a nice experience. Moving on to Spider-Man 2, I'm also at 30 watts 1080p with FSR balanced and frame gen turned on. So it runs pretty good around the city. It's, running decent. FSR balance doesn't look too bad when you're playing on a smaller screen. But you could probably clean it up a little bit if you wanted to go to FSR quality and target something a little bit closer to 60 FPS. On an 8.8-inch screen though, you're probably not going to notice too much because it is a little bit smaller. If you're playing docked, you probably want to go with the quality mode. I tried out God of War at 1080p, FSR balanced and low settings, and we're sitting at the high 60s to mid 70s, which is pretty decent. If you want to max out your battery life though, there's some games you can actually play all the way down to 4 watts. So Persona 5 Royale actually runs at 4 watts and it is below 30 FPS, but with a game like this, you don't really have to worry about that because it's not really timing based. It's just a turn-based RPG. There's other games you can also run at 4 watts like Broforce. I've shown Fallout New Vegas on this chip, as well as Celeste and a number of other games that are just a few years older. If you're like me and you enjoy playing connected to an eGPU, the G1 pairs super well with eGPUs. I recorded some gameplay with the One X GPU too, but you can really connect it to any other eGPU. Another one that I've been testing recently is the Morphine G1. I demoed that one in my AOK Zoe A1X video, so check that one out if you're curious. But back to the One X GPU tests, I tested 3 games just to give you a bit of an idea of what to expect. First one is Cyberpunk once again. Here I can run at 4K ultra settings with FSR quality and frame gen on. You can expect to get somewhere around the 60s with these settings. I would Probably avoid using ray tracing if you're using an AMD eGPU. They just aren't optimized as well for it. If you're using NVIDIA though, you're going to have a really good time. Spider-Man 2 at 4K high settings with FSR balance and frame gen on, I found that, is at 100 FPS or more most of the time. So you could probably adjust FSR to be like at quality and it's going to look a little bit cleaner. If you want to try ray tracing, I would recommend setting it to the lowest settings if you're using the One X GPU too. And lastly, we have Baldur's Gate 3 running at 4K. The settings are maxed out, and I seem to be running mostly in the 40s. I've found that this game seems to have a lot of trouble getting above that when we're walking around Baldur's Gate. Whenever I'm using a handheld connected to an eGPU, it just doesn't seem to go too much higher than that. Next up, I wanted to talk about the battery life. So I did some testing, and I find that you're going to get roughly about an hour of gameplay if you're playing at 30 watts. If you drop that down to 15, it seems to move closer to about 1 hour and a half. So battery life honestly could be better with a 50 watt hour battery. It's not going to be able to get something as impressive as other devices that have like 72 watt hour batteries or 80 watt hour batteries. So if you're going to be away from power for a little bit longer, let's say longer than an hour and a half, I would strongly suggest investing in a good power bank. If you're going on a flight, maybe take something along like the Ugreen 2500 milliamp or something that's a little bit larger like that, that's still flight legal. So what do I think of the G1? Well, first of all, what I do like about the device is that it's a 2-in-1. So there are challenges, as I've noted before, but I do appreciate that they're going with this 2-in-1 design. I find for general use, it was pretty nice having this keyboard, if I'm browsing the web or just on Discord. Handheld mode worked very well for what it is. I find that it's not quite as comfortable as other devices, as I mentioned before, but I would be comfortable using it as my main handheld. It's comfortable enough. The other thing I like is the touch keyboard and trackpad. I found myself liking it a little bit more than I expected. The giant trackpad and the touch keyboard below the controllers are pretty nice to have. It's very easy to switch between them. You just press a button and you're using either a trackpad or a keyboard. The touchpad does make navigating Windows a whole lot easier than other handhelds. And the keyboard is familiar enough with texting from your phone or using a tablet that it's not very hard to get used to using it. The other thing I like is the display. I find it to be one of the device's strengths. Although it's lacking VRR or OLED, it's still vibrant and very capable. It's a large display for handheld use, but it is a little bit small when you're using it as a laptop. The I/O is the same as most Onexplayer devices, except it has Oculink as well. And with the G1, having these extra ports, and especially if you're going to use it like a mini laptop, it's nice to have these extra features, makes it a little bit more robust. And lastly is the performance. The HX370 is a great APU, definitely one of the pluses of this device. Honestly, I've tried a ton of AAA games, and all of them that I've tried have been able to run on this chipset, so I haven't really encountered a time where I've, not been able to run a game. But not everything is positive. There are some things that I think could be improved, and the first one is the D-pad. This was the part of the controller that I found to be the most uncomfortable. It felt a bit shallow and tight. It did work perfectly to do the function that it served, but it just wasn't very comfortable, and it's not my favorite D-pad for sure. The next would be the keyboard size. It is a little bit cramped for typing. Now I know that nothing can really be done to address this because of the device size, but I also found that the keys were a little bit soft, so that's something that they can maybe tighten up on the next revision here. And that's about it. So what do I think of this device overall and who's it for? The G1 is definitely a niche device that won't necessarily appeal to everyone. But I definitely see that there is an appeal for some people. Like some people are looking for something just a little bit more than a handheld where they can get that 2-in-1. Maybe they don't want to carry around a laptop and they're just doing some light use. That's where the G1 I think fits in well. I did purchase my G1 after CES, and if I ask myself, do I regret the purchase? Not at all. I do actually use it quite a bit. I've moved it to be my main device that I use at my desk. So I use this for video editing while it's docked. I'll connect my eGPU when I want to do some like high-end gaming so I can get that extra performance. And it's nice to be able to just throw into my bag if I want to take something to work and maybe, go on Discord or chat with some people and maybe watch a video while I'm at work. I do some night shifts where I have a lot of downtime. So the device is now up for sale on Onexplayer's website instead of Indiegogo. So if you're looking to pick one up, check out the links in the description and you can grab it from there. And that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this one. It's a great little device, some things that can be improved, but I think they're well on their way, and I'm happy to see them being Onexplayer experimenting on new form factors. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.